Think back to the very first time you watched Alfred Hitchcock's 1958 film Vertigo. The first time I watched Vertigo, I was a teenager. You know the thing that impressed me the most? The fact that I could stand behind Kim Novak's head and still see her eyebrows. Until this scene at 1 hour and 39 minutes when the truth about Gavin Elster's conspiracy is revealed, I didn't even know I was watching a murder mystery. Up to that point, I assumed I was watching some kind of ghost possession story. But in a way, maybe Vertigo really is a ghost story. Something got captured on Alfred Hitchcock's VistaVision surveillance camera. The strange apparition known as the Hitchcock Blonde. She comes impeccably dressed, but even when she's naked, she always carries her most important accessory, mystique. This is a creature who can get dunked in a bay and emerge from the water as luminous as a pearl. Is she a ghost? Watch as she leaves the door open at the bell tower. But a moment later, the main character, Scotty Ferguson, discovers that the door is closed. Maybe she never opened it at all. Or maybe the technique in which this scene was shot is trying to communicate that she and Scotty relate to each other within a totally different spectrum. Notice how with the footage Alfred Hitchcock has left you and me, Scotty and this Hitchcock blonde fuse together perfectly in these sequences. Of all the characters in Vertigo, why are these two characters singled out to be photographed in this peculiar way? The secret Vertigo I've been investigating seems on a subliminal level to want Scotty and this Hitchcock blonde to become two halves of the same whole. If my interpretation of all this stuff I've been researching and talking about in these videos is correct, this fusion of masculinity and femininity is a very dangerous idea in the 1950s. It's such a dangerous idea that maybe Alfred Hitchcock felt like he needed to conceal it, the same way Leonardo da Vinci may have hidden his initials inside the Mona Lisa's eye. If Alfred Hitchcock wanted to camouflage this dangerous idea, then just like Leonardo, maybe Alfred Hitchcock left a trail of breadcrumbs leading to some kind of safe spot within Vertigo's perilous spinning universe. If such a trail of breadcrumbs truly exists, I'd like to try and find it. And if I'm going to pretend to be any kind of investigator, I guess the only thing for me to do is I need to grab my magnifying glass, I need to summon some courage, and I need to go ahead and jump in and face the danger head on. Welcome to part 4 of Vertigo, investigating a Hitchcock masterpiece. Mark here, back with you for the final video in this series, and after everything you and I have been through together, I feel like I owe you something. I'd offer you a cup of Scotty's coffee, but I don't know, evidently Scotty's coffee is not very good. Apparently his coffee is so terrible the very idea of drinking it causes a refined young lady like the one Kim Novak is portraying to blurt out, "No." Before she remembers her manners and adds a no thank you to her refusal. I mean, just look at her face. Yikes. Maybe instead of coffee, it would be better if I treated you to a fabulous night out at Ernie's restaurant during its heyday. And since I'm looking for a trail of breadcrumbs in this movie, a restaurant might be a good place to start. But I hope you're not too hungry, because the only things on the menu tonight are mirrors, light fixtures, and choreography. No, not that kind of choreography. What I'm talking about is the hustle Alfred Hitchcock is trying to pull on you and me. There is a sort of choreographed ballet hiding in Ernie's restaurant. In possibly one of the most unforgettable moments in the film, or in any film for that matter, you and I are wordlessly introduced to this enchanting enigma known as Madeleine. But who is she? Well, there's no sense in asking Gavin Elster. To a guy like Gavin, this piece of arm candy is just an appendage that Gavin is in the process of having removed. She's just a stepping stone in Gavin's ascent to the heights of masculine greatness. Her grave marker says it all. No last name, no dates. Her only notable achievement is that she used to be something attached to a man named Gavin Elster, and apparently he's the one more deserving of getting proper billing on the granite. But to a guy like Scotty, Madeleine is so much more, and this introductory scene in Ernie's restaurant contains hints of just how important Madeleine is about to become. You're experienced enough with Vertigo, and you don't need me to tell you that ladies in gray suits are important to this story. As the scene begins, there's one lady in a gray suit strategically positioned behind Scotty. Now keep your eyes on the left side of the screen as another lady in gray approaches Scotty. The camera joins in by making Scotty and these two ladies combine on the right edge of the screen. It's like some merger just happened, the way a merger happens on the right side of the screen during Alfred Hitchcock's cameo. What's happening under the surface of the scene at Ernie's restaurant is Scotty and his invented masculine role model, Gavin, are in a secret laboratory extracting the feminine side to create a woman, ultimately to destroy her. At this point in the story, Scotty is trying his best to play along and be one of the guys. Scotty has taken off his corset and is wearing Gavin's color, blue. Society made Scotty hate himself for being what's considered less than a man, but this scene at Ernie's restaurant early in the movie is a curious moment when Scotty breaks the rules and for the first time seems to embrace his feminine side. As Gavin takes Madeleine away from Scotty and away from you and me, you can clearly make out Gavin's reflection in the mirror. The feminine side, Madeleine, is separated from Gavin in the mirror. It's like watching a single-celled organism separate into two. Being able to see Gavin's reflection separated from the feminine side in a mirror isn't a remarkable thing, of course, until you consider how what Scotty does with his reflection and his feminine side in this scene is, ironically, the reverse. Scotty is seated at the bar in front of a mirror, but there's no reflection of Scotty. Instead, what Scotty does in this scene is he mirrors Madeleine. Footage of her turning her head to her right is masterfully edited with footage of Scotty turning his head to his left, as if Scotty and Madeleine are each other's reflection. It reminds me of a shot from the opening credits from the movie Tootsie, another movie about a man and his feminine side. See how these students in an acting class are mirroring each other. It's the same with Scotty and Madeleine. Instead of dividing, Scotty and Madeleine seem to be combining each half into one entity, which, as I'm about to show you, is possibly what Alfred Hitchcock intended all along. If all the evidence checks out, within this dream Scotty's experiencing, Judy is the embodiment of the feminine side of Scotty that society has taught him to despise. But Madeleine is different. Madeleine is the feminine side which Scotty embraces. He accepts this side of himself the way a child would before society and parental figures and peer groups have taught Scotty what is and what isn't acceptable. Even though Judy tries to eclipse Scotty's reflection, Scotty knows in the second half of the movie that, just like Gavin did at Ernie's restaurant, Scotty has no choice but to split up with this feminine side and to become a separate entity until, at the end of the story, the only one left looking in the mirror back at Scotty is Scotty himself. But what's interesting to me is how in the first half of the movie with Madeleine, incredibly, and maybe symbolically, Scotty hardly has any reflection at all. The way the first half of the movie is filmed, Scotty's reflections are anemic at best. The closest Scotty comes in the first half of the movie to having a recognizable reflection is when he's talking to Madeleine in her car, and even then it's as if Scotty and Madeleine are two parts of the same person. See how it almost looks like she's wearing his hat? To me, it seems like there's something intentional going on here. Focus on this mirror in Scotty's apartment, and keep in mind the blocking of this shot. And when Scotty should be able to see himself in the mirror, what you and I see instead is the mirror specifically framing not Scotty, but Madeleine. The same thing happens later, but in reverse, when Madeleine is looking toward the mirror. See how when she looks toward the mirror, it's Scotty who becomes symbolically framed inside it. When Madeleine pins up her hair using a small mirror from her purse, she places the mirror in such a way that she and Scotty are on opposite sides of it. The same way that red and green look at each other from opposite sides of the color wheel, Scotty and Madeleine look at each other from opposite sides of the mirror, to the extent that they're even reflecting each other's red and green colors. A mirror is like water. It's a reflective surface, and Scotty and Madeleine are diving into it and going through the looking glass. It's like Flaubert is Madame Bovary, Kathy is Heathcliff, and Scotty is Madeleine. Though Scotty starts out ashamed of his feminine half, with Madeleine, half of Scotty is finally becoming comfortable with the other half he sees in the mirror. Scotty has ruined Gavin's symbolic water murder by diving into that mirror and bringing the feminine half back to life. Madeleine's words aren't even audible in the movie until after Scotty defies Gavin and saves Madeleine. This might be why during the opening credits it's emphasized that the woman moves her lips, but she can't seem to speak. This might be why the penultimate line of dialogue in the movie is the Mother Superior saying, "I heard voices." Scotty's feminine half finally has a voice, only when Scotty interacts with this half of himself. If Madeleine Elster is part of Scotty, Maybe this is why her initials spell me. Alfred Hitchcock seems to be going to great pains to depict Scotty's and Madeleine's embrace into and through the looking glass. If you go through the looking glass in Judy's hotel room, you'll see how one of her lampshades becomes a reflection of her in a way. There's a reason why the lampshades in her room are pleated, a very important reason. Of all the other interiors in Vertigo, and there are a lot, you can look and look, but nowhere else in the movie are you going to be able to find pleated lampshades, except in one other place, Scotty's apartment. One of Scotty's pleated lampshades is featured during the scene when Madeleine recounts her nightmare, and it's featured very prominently, almost too prominently. I mean, it's right in your face. The pleating forms a corrugated surface, like a fan, like a staircase, like a lenticular picture, which, as you know, combines two images into one. Watch this. Between these two shots, the composition remains identical. It's as if Alfred Hitchcock is emphasizing how Scotty and Madeleine assume each other's identity. It's almost like what a lenticular picture does. And judging by the vertical folds in this picture at Ernie's restaurant, it looks to me like a lenticular picture has been suspiciously hiding in Vertigo all along. In addition to Scotty's pleated lampshades, there's another important lampshade in Scotty's apartment, but this one is smooth. Alfred Hitchcock only shows this particular lampshade to you and me in two specific instances. When Gavin telephones Scotty, and one more time when Gavin thrusts Scotty into that nightmare montage. Since the only time you and I see this lampshade is in relation to Gavin, it might mean that the smooth lampshade symbolizes how Gavin ironed out his kinks when he divided himself from the feminine side in the mirror at Ernie's restaurant, and Gavin and 1950s society are pressuring Scotty to do the same. Since Scotty and Judy share these pleated lampshades, if Scotty has a smooth lampshade, Judy should have a smooth lampshade too. Sure enough, she does, and it's just as in your face in her letter writing scene as that pleated lampshade was when Madeleine was describing her nightmare. Ignore Judy for a moment and focus on the frilly pleated lampshade on Judy's headboard instead. As the frilly lampshade on the headboard leaves the frame to the right, another lampshade is timed and positioned perfectly to replace it. This is Gavin's symbolic smooth lampshade, moving to the left toward masculinity as always. In a split second of cruelty, Gavin's lampshade erases Judy's face. When that lampshade reaches the left side of the screen, it's choreographed to perfectly leave the frame, just as the pleated lampshade in the background appears in the frame in its place. That symbolic smooth lampshade keeps popping up. There it is again. At this point late in the story, Scotty has almost completely smoothed out his kinks. Scotty has almost entirely removed his feminine side like Gavin wants him to, but Scotty can't resist one last backslide into embracing his feminine side. And that's the moment when the frilly pleated lampshade on the headboard seems to appear out of nowhere. It reminds me of Midge's frilly pink brassiere. It reminds me of that fancy pink hat. And I think it's trying to tell you and me something. The way the lampshades dance across the screen during Judy's letter writing scene doesn't look accidental to me. It looks choreographed, which brings me to what I suspect is another bit of choreography. Pay attention to the background of this shot at the Empire Hotel. Watch how the two men on the sidewalk crisscross each other. Okay, this might look random and not worthy of your attention at first, but check out how the same thing happens again at night. once might be random, but now it's starting to look suspiciously deliberate to me. If you keep in mind how the Gray Ladies and Ernie's Restaurant merged with Scotty, and the merger with Scotty during Alfred Hitchcock's cameo, the thing I'm about to show you might just convince you that Alfred Hitchcock has obviously been one choreographed step ahead of you and me this entire time. These two moments at the entrance to Scotty's apartment act as bookends for one of those driving sequences that Vertigo is famous for. And this sequence is also home to my favorite single-take shot in the movie. The sequence begins with a dissolve from Scotty's apartment to some moments of Scotty waiting outside Madeleine's apartment, and then my favorite shot begins here. At first glance, the shot you've just seen might not appear to be anything special, but you probably already noticed the two men in the background. They're like mirror images of each other. As the two men approach from left to right and right to left, where else do the two men meet but at the exact entrance to the Brocklebank, which is one of the many symbols for femininity in the movie. The men are able to pass through to the other side of the mirror unscathed. It's just like what happens in Alfred Hitchcock's cameo. The shot is diagonally divided into two halves, with Scotty caught in the middle, teetering on the mirror's edge. One half I'll call the feminine side, and the other half the masculine side. The right, or feminine side of the screen, features green and red cars. The left, or masculine side of the screen, features black and white cars. What's strange about this is that the black and white from the masculine side mirrors the black and white that Madeleine is wearing on the feminine side. Likewise, Scotty on the masculine side mirrors Madeleine by wearing a necktie with colors from the feminine side, red and green. As you know, the driving sequence following that shot is intentionally dizzying. The sequence is so dizzying that Scotty ends up doing a terrible job at parking his car. In a film about dizziness, this sequence might have a very great significance. And I suspect this maze leading to Scotty's apartment might just be the trail of breadcrumbs I've been searching for. If you remember the first time you and I enter Scotty's apartment, check out what he's doing. He's burning wood. He's using a wooden broom to get rid of the water from Madeleine's soaking wet clothes. By the end of the scene, the broom has transformed to Scotty's color, red. Symbolically, this might mean that in Scotty's domain, Scotty is the master of both water and wood, of Gavin and Midge, of his masculine and feminine sides. Scotty's home is even protected by the Chinese symbol, Shuangxi, two Chinese characters joined to form double happiness, just like the fusion of the two characters, Scotty and Madeleine. This is a place where Scotty can defy 1950s expectations of manhood as much or as little as he wants. He can read a raunchy magazine like Swank if he wants. He can carry a purse if he wants and not face ridicule or feel shame. A few steps outside his door, Scotty can do the unthinkable in the 1950s and sit in the passenger seat while a woman drives and not feel ashamed of that either. Scotty can finally be chivalrous and noble, nurturing and caring, whatever. He's finally found some freedom. Likewise, among Madeleine's dress, petticoat, stockings, gloves, and scarf, there's no brassiere, no restraint, at last. While the symbolic storm of masculinity and femininity is raging on the other side of the glass, Scotty and his feminine half are symbolically trying on each other's personas by the fire to see how they fit. Again, Scotty in this scene is wearing Madeleine's color, green. Meanwhile, the red robe Madeleine wears is a dead ringer for the necktie Scotty wore leading up to his apartment. Madeleine even secures the robe left over right, the way a man wears shirts or jackets, instead of right over left, the way a woman does. I feel like all the signs are pointing me to this conclusion, that this place is a moment in time in the 1950s where I can keep Scotty and Madeleine safe. The final confirmation that this place is the sanctuary within the Mobius strip that is Vertigo would be this. Can I find a way to make this scene loop within the loop of the movie itself? Remember the continuity error with the chairs in Scotty's apartment? I'm going to pretend that mistake is actually the final breadcrumb Alfred Hitchcock might have left me. At the end of this scene, Madeleine watches as Scotty closes the bedroom door and the chairs are misplaced. But at the beginning of this scene, it's Scotty who watches as Madeleine appears in the doorway. The chairs are back to normal, the scene can resume. And the moment the chairs are misplaced is when the scene can end and begin. End and begin, over and over, again and again. And Scotty and Madeleine can finally exist, safe from danger, and achieve a kind of balance in the symbolic eye of the storm, the calm center of this spiraling hurricane known as Vertigo. And with that, those are my thoughts on Vertigo. I'm going to take a moment here to say thank you to you for watching. And I'd like to thank Electro-Classic Orchestra for agreeing to provide all the music. I hope you enjoyed this little series of videos. Based on the evidence, is Vertigo really a secret double film? Is it as much a thriller as it is a look at gender norms and how society robs some people of half of their humanity? Are Gavin and Midge actually patriarchal and matriarchal forces engaged in a symbolic custody battle over Scotty's identity? Are Madeleine and Judy really the parts of Scotty that he likes and dislikes about himself? Does the number 8 mean that Vertigo is some sort of Mobius strip time warp intended to never end? I mean, there is a little clock next to it after all. All of this might sound pretty outlandish, and you know what? What if none of this matters? So many people call Vertigo Alfred Hitchcock's most personal film. But what if Vertigo's final secret is that Vertigo was intended to be your personal film? Maybe this dream Alfred Hitchcock committed to celluloid belongs to you, and it's yours to interpret if you want to or not. And that was Alfred Hitchcock's intention all along. Even though critics back in 1958 didn't like Vertigo very much, the destiny of any artwork is to outlive its critics and to find love. Even after all these years, Vertigo hasn't lost any of its fizz, its elegance, and its audacity. Vertigo is forever peculiar, always breathtaking, and eternally ambiguous. I think among other movies, and even among Alfred Hitchcock's other films, Vertigo stands apart. I think it stands by itself the same way the Mona Lisa is set apart from all the other artworks in the Louvre. Even though I believe Vertigo is 2 movies, 2 stories, 2 tragedies, for me it will always be a pioneering, unparalleled, original, and singular masterpiece. For me, it will always be the one, the only Vertigo.